Hello curious human, in this video I want to talk about getting a degree in China. I personally have an idea that Chinese higher education is massively underrated by North American and European population. I'd like to understand why. Judging from what I've seen teaching in a university here, I can say that for a Chinese student this education is quite challenging, for such reasons as a number of students in class, for example. 50 to 60 students. Try to get attention of your teacher in this crowd, right? Overpopulated classes create another major problem. Style of teaching. A big class means a teacher talks and students listen. But all this is about a classroom for Chinese students, which might be the reason why Chinese higher education is overlooked by international students from North America and Europe. Today I want to introduce a friend of mine who agreed to share his experience in studying in a Chinese university. His name is Guillaume. He is Canadian, living and working in Nanjing. Guillaume has been living in Nanjing for many years. He speaks flawless Chinese, and as a matter of fact, he is my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach. Guillaume has 2 BJJ schools and he is doing pretty good. He is a sort of local Jiu-Jitsu celebrity. Some people move and find a job in Nanjing just because of his school here. Before we start, I'd like to mention that I have a big video where I'm talking to 5 international students who are still studying here. If you're thinking of getting involved in studying in China, you should definitely check it out. The link to important information about current situation of international students is right here. So, is Chinese degree legit? Is it easy to study here? What majors would make the most sense to study in China? How expensive is it? What about the language barrier? Should you get yourself into getting a student's loan to get into a university in the States, for example, and then be condemned to pay back that loan for all of your life? Let's dot the I's and cross the T's. Guillaume, you come from Canada, where most people prefer to get bachelor's degree in North America. What made you get your bachelor's degree here in China?
Yeah, it's funny because I was actually going to do university in Canada. I was already signed up to do kinesiology. I've always been interested in understanding how the human body works, so that was my plan to go do that. However, I was a little bit not so excited because the first 2 years was medical school, and after that I could go into the more specified field of like sports medicine and things that I'm interested in. But anyway, that was the plan. And my father, he's in the hotel industry. He threw a big curveball at me. He said, I thought it was a joke at first, right? He said, we're moving to China. We have a job opportunity to go there and we would like you to come along. I said, what? China? I said, yeah, take a gap year or a gap semester, come see the world. If you like it, you can go to school there. If you don't like it, you can come back to Canada and continue your program. Thought about it and I said, you know what? Yeah, 6 months is not a big deal. Go check it out. And then I decided to come with the whole family. Did a semester of language to make living here more enjoyable, more convenient. And then did another one and another one. One day my teacher was like, you have this many credits, you need this many more, and you have a degree. I said, all right, let's do it. And then 13 years later, I'm still here. Yeah.
What did you think about China before you came here? Because when you said, China, when your dad invited you to come here, I saw that expression on your face that you were a bit skeptical about it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a joke at first. I had never been to Asia, and let alone think about living here, coming here. And at first, I really did think it was a prank. I just wanted to see my reaction. But then I was like, good one, good one. And then him and my mom were not laughing. Oh, you guys are for real? So yeah, I mean, China at first, I did not know anything about it. The images I had in my mind of China were those of people farming rice with big round hats.
The same to me.
And learning Kung Fu.
The same.
and yeah, doing martial arts in like temples and like Shaolin style. That was pretty much it.
Weren't you amazed to see how people are dressed like in Europe or like in the States the same, right?
Yeah, so when we first got here, it's like, man, this is a mega city. It's a small city of 8 million people, right, that we're in. But yeah, I mean, the only difference really is that the names of the stores are in funny little drawings, Chinese characters. And there's a lot more Asian people. Otherwise, you know, the normal day-to-day, it's the same.
So
right?
basically you didn't know much about China, and then you...
When I arrived, I was like, whoa, interesting.
You accepted the challenge, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you regret?
No, I mean, you are where you are because of all the decisions that you've made in the past. So I think there's nothing to regret about that, right? If you had done things differently, you would also be a different person today. And I'm happy with where I'm at, so no regrets.
You studied linguistics, Chinese linguistics. What made you choose this major?
At first, I did just a language semester, just so I could get around. But I did it at the university. I could have gotten a tutor or something like that. But actually, I'm not sure why I decided to do that, but that's what I did. And I really liked it. I enjoyed learning the language. I speak French, English. I learned Spanish in high school. Forgot it now, but I'm picking it up with Duolingo recently. Anyways, so I've always enjoyed learning languages. And learning Chinese was a challenge, but also it was very rewarding because every time I would learn something, I could apply it immediately to my life here. And so that nice feedback loop was motivating. And so I just kept going.
I think you have a talent for languages, because when I first time heard you speaking Chinese, I thought for some reason, that you were born here maybe, or grew up here or something like that, because you sound so natural, like just like local. If I close my eyes and listen to you speak in Chinese, well, because I know you, of course, I imagine your face, but I would imagine that a Chinese person would think that one of the locals is speaking.
Yeah, I put a lot of focus on trying to make it authentic, and yeah, because I guess the ear I have for languages, when I would hear my classmates or foreigners speak, or people that Chinese wasn't their first language, speak Chinese, and local people speak Chinese, I could tell the difference. And I wanted to be able to speak the way they did. So I spent a lot of time on the pinyin, which is the Chinese alphabet basically, and making sure that each sound was pronounced properly. Of course, I was lucky because in class, the teachers would explain to us each sound, where the tongue is supposed to be, how do you place your teeth, etc., so that it sounds right. But yeah, I pride myself in having standard Chinese.
Dear friends, if you think that this video is interesting and useful, please leave a comment down below and tell me what you think. Also, give me a like, and the best way to say thank you is to subscribe, of course, to see more content like that, and to help YouTube algorithms to put this video in trend so more people could see that. Thanks. How much did it take you to get to the level where you are right now? How many years, I mean, did it take you?
It took, let's say, 6 months to a year to be very comfortable in conversation and not have moments where I pause and say, what was that? I don't understand.
Does it include only speaking?
More
or?
speaking. Speaking, listening. When it comes to writing and reading, say maybe a little bit longer. But also, I personally feel like writing on a computer or on my phone, and reading and speaking, the words that I know them, both in written form and like orally, right? It's when it's a word that I don't know, then it doesn't matter whether someone says it or I read it, then I won't know what it means. So I think it's different for everybody, but yeah, when I knew it, right? The one thing though is writing in Chinese, because it's all the different strokes for every character. The handwriting, yeah. Handwriting is not at all my forte, right? And it's funny because even a lot of Chinese people, certain words that, because nowadays we don't write so much, right? So if certain words they don't use so often, the Chinese also, what they do is they take out their phone, they type it, and then they copy the character.
Right. I saw that. Yeah. I saw
and
it many times.
me, much like for most of the writing, just because on a day-to-day I do not write handwritten, but with a phone, because what you do is you put in the pinyin, the alphabet, and then you choose the according character. So that I'm fluent in, no problem. But writing it like this, I need to first write it on my phone and then copy the character.
Well, it's a really rare occasion where you need to use your handwriting nowadays, right?
The only time where I write anything is when someone signs up at the gym, right? They get a membership, and then I write the receipt.
Yes.
So otherwise, and I don't do that most of the time anyway. So it's very rare that I do handwriting. But yeah, it's not really necessary nowadays.
How much did you pay for your bachelor's degree here in China? Because the price, I would imagine, be very different from North American universities and here.
Yes. So luckily it was a fraction of what it costs to do university in the States. And in Canada, it's less pricey than in the US, right? In the US, it's very expensive, especially in the province of Quebec, where I'm originally from. Anyways, I believe it was 8,000 RMB, something
per year?
Per semester.
Per semester.
Which would be 16,000, let me see.
8,000 RMB, that's about 1,200 USD.
Yeah, 1,000 US per semester.
1,000 US per semester.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I wasn't living on campus, so I was living with my family at first, and then they moved to a different city to continue the hotel life, and I stayed.
So it brings me to the next question, which is about legitimacy and the level of recognition of those degrees. For example, a degree from China versus a degree from not like Yale or anything like that, but from like second-class university, not too expensive, in the States. If you compare those two, if we, let's not talk about Chinese linguistics, because Chinese linguistics degree obtained in China is of course more valuable, I think, than Chinese linguistics degree obtained in the States. But if we, let's say, compare, I don't know, engineering here and engineering in the States, which one would you think be more valuable?
It's an interesting question. For me, like you said, I mean, if it was Spanish in China, it'd be more questionable a little bit. But Chinese in China, I would agree it's better than in Canada or elsewhere. In terms of engineering or another degree like business or things like that, I think nowadays what's more important is the degree itself. You show an employer that you were able to start something and finish it. So unless, like you said, you're at Yale or Harvard, or in China at like Beijing University or Tsinghua, or like the top of the top, right? That's one thing. But if it's a regular university, I think you don't have that high brand name or whatever. It's the same, you know. And in some ways, I think it's more unique that you were able to travel abroad and see a different perspective of things. Come back and show that to the HR person, right? Oh, okay, this person did their degree in another country. That's interesting. It's a little bit special.
It's curious that not so many people think like you do. You are coming from North America, from Canada. So I'm just trying to say that I normally see students from Middle East or from India or from Africa here in China. I almost never see a student from North America or Europe. I've met a couple of people who are getting their PhDs here, but that's a different topic.
Yeah.
PhD, yeah, it's not like you can choose, and by the time you're getting your PhD or master's, you can really it doesn't really matter, in my opinion. But like your base degree, your bachelor's, I think many people in the States, for example, I would imagine think that their unis would beat any Chinese uni in terms of education. So don't you think that China is so under-discovered by North Americans in this case?
I think people know that China on the world stage is one of the main players nowadays, right? So I don't think that a Chinese degree would be less valuable than any other country's degree, honestly. And when it comes to engineering, for example, I have a friend who did his engineering degree here in China. He did 1 year first of language and then did the whole degree in Chinese of engineering, right? So that's very impressive. I don't see that his degree be any different than had he done it back home or whatnot. And I guess it's true that there are more people from, let's say, not like the first world countries, right, that come to study here. There are Europeans and Americans and Canadians and whatnot, but it's true that in percentage-wise, there are less students that are from there here. But we do see them.
I've never seen anyone getting a bachelor's degree from Europe or North America in China. I've never met anyone.
Okay,
like
well,
that.
when I was in school, I had certain classmates that were from these
Okay.
countries. Yeah,
Did
but
you
I
have-
mean a lot more Koreans and people from the Arabic countries or African, like you said, or South American also quite a few. But there were a couple.
You said that you met some students from North America and Europe when you were a student, right?
Yeah.
Did you have this kind of conversation with them? Like, did you compare education here and back home? No?
Not really, no. So it's interesting that you mentioned this because it was never a thought that crossed my mind that my degree would be less valuable than anyone else's. Yeah.
I'm trying to. The idea of this video is why not for Americans or Canadians, for example, or for those whose education in their countries are super expensive, why not come here and study for
much
less money? Like in the States, I heard you pay from $100,000 to whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then you have the student's debt for all your life. It's ridiculous. Like,
crazy,
why not
yeah.
come here and study for like $1,000 a semester, and earn this money yourself, and be super independent. And,
Absolutely.
like, what is the deal with?
I think people don't.
Why not come here?
I think most people, it's not even an option in their head to come to study abroad is one thing. Like maybe go to Europe for Canadians, but to go to Asia to do your degree, it's usually very unheard of. It's not something that people think about unless they already are interested in Chinese culture and they want to learn TCM, for example, right? Traditional Chinese medicine. Otherwise, yeah, it's just like you just, the normal is you get a loan and you go to school and then you have to pay it back yourself, which is very difficult, right?
Probably language barrier, probably Chinese language scares away lots of students, right? Because let's say if it's not Chinese linguistics or Chinese traditional medicine, if it's business, for example, myself, I would hardly imagine me deciding on going to China. I'm answering the question myself here.
Yeah.
Probably so, yeah. Language barrier. Maybe people think that it's going to be super difficult to learn Chinese and then study in a university where language of instruction is Chinese. They might miss out on many things, right?
I mean, it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
But when you have the different options, right? Like you go in debt for X amount of years and you have to pay this huge amount of money, or you work really hard and learn a new language and then see the world and do it in China. I mean, it's a decision that people have to make on their own.
Yeah, that's true. Would you say that here in China, they have lots of superfluous subjects and things that they cover, like redundant subjects, just to fill in the time kind of subjects, and that they spoon feed you here? I don't know about that in unis because I was a teacher in university, but I never studied in university here. But what I see in schools, because I'm a middle school teacher, what I see in schools, lots of teachers, 95% of their class teacher is talking and students are listening, so it's like spoon feeding information without making you do your job as a student, without you doing your research, spending time on, reading books and getting information from different sources and then forming your own opinion?
At least in my experience, there weren't many courses that were not practical, right? We had language, we had linguistics, we had like business language, we had ancient language, which was the course that I personally disliked the most because I'm a person that likes to be practical, and understanding how people spoke Chinese 2,000 years ago, right, is not useful because it's not how people speak now. It's like Shakespearean language for English. I mean, it could be interesting, but for me, it wasn't something that I was very into. We had to learn, let's say, like 100 words per week, a lot of the times, right? So the workload is very high. It was because you need to learn the language as fast as possible. That's the goal. A lot of people, they do the language program for a year and then go into whatever major it is that they want to do, right? So it's a lot of cramming information. And I think that's also maybe something that is stereotypical or maybe more common here in Asia, right? It's like, this is what it is and you have to just memorize it, basically. So maybe that's not the best way to learn things, but it gets the job done, right? And then to add on to a point that we were talking about earlier, if, for example, you're a lawyer or a doctor or something like this, and know that you need to get the degree in the country of practice, right? So if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer or something, don't go do the degree in China to then go back home and do that, right? That's not going to work. But most degrees, I truly believe, like, you learn something just to do it, and then nowadays you educate yourself your whole life anyway. So you just need the paper, you need the document, the proof that you've done it, and then afterwards you go on with the rest of your life. Most people nowadays, they learn one thing and then they go do a completely different field.
Exactly, yeah. Just like you mentioned a minute ago, that many people obtain a degree and then they don't necessarily use that degree in their future job. How much are you using your degree in your current job?
Every single day. Because for me, I work in the fitness industry. We run 2 martial arts schools here, and most of our members are Chinese. So whether it's the day-to-day service that we need to do, or teaching lessons, teaching classes, or talking with my workmates, it's all in Chinese. Most of it is in Chinese, and therefore I get to use what I learned. Not so much the linguistics part, but the language part. It's a day-to-day thing for me, yeah. So, yeah, every day I get to use it.
Yeah. I mean, I know that because I attend your classes, but for the audience, yes, Guillaume usually speaks in Chinese and it's so good. I'm like, oh my God. Sometimes I learn some words from you when you explain something to Chinese students. If you were to go to Canada and teach Chinese, would you be able to do this with your degree, with your Chinese degree? Would it be accepted?
I'm not sure if I would be able to go back to Canada and start teaching Chinese immediately in terms of certifications and things like that. Normally to teach, you need to do a teaching course, right, and get that certificate. So in terms of that, I would probably have to do one more thing. But in terms of the ability to teach someone Chinese, whether it's like a one-on-one or in a class setting, absolutely I could do it. And a lot of people, I think that's the reason for them to do a degree in this, is to go back to their own country and teach the language, right? Normally, you see people that are native speakers teach that language to students, right? But sometimes it actually, not being a native speaker means that you have to understand the language more, because the grammar in English or in French, for example, I don't know it as well as I do in Chinese because I had to learn it.
Yeah.
And it was a conscious effort to understand that the verb needs to be placed at this part in the sentence.
Yeah.
Whilst in English, you just pick it up because you start speaking so young that when you have people ask you who English is not their first language, like, why is it that you have to say this sentence this way? The answer usually is you just say it this way. That's just the way it is.
It came to you naturally, yeah. You don't know how to explain it.
You don't exactly. But in Chinese, you can say, oh yeah, it makes sense because the rule is this.
Yeah.
So definitely I could teach Chinese if that's what I wanted to do.
If you compare those three, English, Chinese, and French, which one would be the most difficult? I know it's hard because French and English came to you naturally, but if you try to look objectively on those three languages.
I mean, it depends, right? I think Chinese, in terms of the grammar, is the easiest. The grammar in French is harder than in English, and in Chinese. You have masculine, feminine, and then all the verb tenses and things like that. English also, there are so many weird things. You know, you watch videos sometimes. Why is it that a certain word is pronounced like this, even though the letters inside this word don't correspond with the sound or what have you? So the Chinese language is very practical. However, the written form is quite complex.
Yeah.
Also, there's like the tones and things like this. But I think if you pay attention to the phonetics, then it's not so much of an issue, right? And language is a tool for communication. So first, it's the ability to understand what other people are saying, then to express yourself, and then to be able to understand the written form and then write it yourself. So yeah, I guess Chinese is harder, but being able to speak is not that difficult.
It depends on how you learn too. For example, I don't know that information, but I would guess that when you were a student, most of your friends were locals, and you spend most of your time hanging out with Chinese people rather than with international students, right?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually lucky in a way because I wasn't living in the school dorms with all the other foreign students. So I went to school, and sometimes I would hang out with them as well, but most of the time I would go to school, and then I would go to jiu-jitsu. And so there were expats at jiu-jitsu too, but a lot of it was with Chinese people. And then we would talk about doing jiu-jitsu, and it's a very, it's a sport where you need two people to even practice. And so you'd have to communicate. No, you gotta do this. How do you say this? Pull, Allah, okay, and then, you know. So I was learning whilst we're learning at school and then applying it immediately. And it's funny, one of the things that I did that I think helped a lot as well is to get to the jiu-jitsu school, I had to take the metro for about 30 minutes to go and 30 minutes back. So what I would do is I would sit on the metro and look around and see who is like more friendly looking, and then just start talking to them.
Ah, that's so cool. Yeah.
And at first, because a lot of Chinese people also are curious about
foreigners.
Yeah, foreigners. And so in the beginning, the conversation would last 10 seconds, and then it'd be like, I don't understand what you said, sorry. And then just awkward silence, right? But eventually, the conversations could go on for longer and longer and longer, until eventually I was able to have a conversation with someone for the whole ride. And I kept doing that for a few months until it got to the point where it was just boring. It was diminishing returns at that point because every time was the same conversation. Where are you from?
Do you like Chinese food?
Do you
have
like
a
Chinese
girlfriend?
food? Why are you here? Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah.
What's it like in your country? This and that.
What would you say to people who are thinking if they should come to China or not from Europe or North America? Like, how would you encourage them to come here?
Come. I mean, people here are friendly and they are welcoming. The cost of living is cheaper than it is in Europe or in North America. Your money goes a long way here. So you can, whether you want to work here or study here, I think it's a great choice. I was 18 years old, 19 years old, living here as a student, taking taxis and going out for dinner and doing all just having a great life, going to get massages, this and that. whilst a lot of my friends back home, they had to work 2 jobs and go to school and just, you know, so when we would have conversations, I felt like I made the right decision, you know. So there you go. Yeah, come check it out, and also try jiu-jitsu.